Good morning to everyone. This is I'm Gianluca Zampa from Freshfields. I was involved in the hotel booking case, so I have 2 points to make, in particular to Sven and Paolo, on what has been said this morning and in the cases. The first one is, I would say, a procedural one. I know that we are in a context of economists. I think procedures count in this world. And my question is whether this commitment procedure on its face doesn't look more like an old-style individual exemption case, like in the old days. Why I'm saying this? Because, first of all, commitments typically are acceptable only if they are clear-cut, if they eliminate any problem. You have said yourself, and it was clear, for example, from the Italian case, that there's been a trade-off analysis between potential anti-competitive effect and potential positive effect, the elimination of the free riding. And that seems to me pretty much a 1013 analysis, which fits perfectly under the individual exemption old-style scenario. And one sort of red flag of this, I think, should have come to the people involved when, at a certain point, Booking proposed to extend the duration of the commitments to 5 years. And the authorities wanted to reduce the extent of the duration of the commitments, which is completely counterintuitive in a commitment scenario. In fact, the French, before the adoption of this law, had put in place a mechanism that these commitments had to be revised after 1 year, while Booking wanted 5 years. So this is, I think, they wanted protection for 5 years. Second point is on the merit, is more on the substance. And if we were to go into a real trade-off analysis under 113, so not just in economic terms, but under the legal requirements of 113, an essential point of the analysis is indispensability. Indispensability requires that the restriction has to be indispensable in order to preserve the efficiencies that are there, potentially. And so here I had 2 questions that I would have wanted to explore during the case, but nobody responded to me, so I'm posing the question now. We are talking about OTAs, but hotels OTAs, but in this world we have also airline OTAs. They do exactly the same job, the same type of job. They are a platform. They compare prices. They are free for the consumers. Everything. There are no MFNs there, and they survive. The model that they are using is not collapsed. It is true that there is a different upstream market. You have hotels, very fragmented, and you have airlines, which are more concentrated. But that gives you an explanation why there are no MFNs. But they don't tell anything about, or they tell a lot about the fact that free riding argument is probably overstated there. That's my view. And finally, a point that was made by Giancarlo, and I think I'm reusing it against the free riding argument. He used the bonuses point in order to say, foreclosure could not be an issue because the new entrant could pay bonuses to the consumers and therefore apply the same prices, but then give an incentive to for consumers to book on its platform. But that's exactly what Booking could do in order to avoid the problem of free riding. If Booking is concerned that an hotel chain, for example, may charge a lower price on its website, then it could just offer bonuses on top of the price. So I think it's exactly the same point. There is no real indispensability. I'm sorry for having been a little bit aggressive, but I was involved, so that's where my passion comes from. But I would appreciate a response on these points. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianluca, for this fourth presentation to this session. I'm sure the reply will be shorter.
So, I'm not a lawyer, so the first point I sort of might want to jump, perhaps. So about the airline and the airlines. perhaps prices are more important in the airline case than in hotels. In hotels, there are other parameters that are important for consumers. Like where the hotel is located, the type of rooms, how it looks, and so on. And one of the big services of the OTAs is to compare the hotel rooms in these dimensions to not only in the dimension in the price dimension. So the free riding, to go to the well, I have to think more about this. Could we perhaps discuss this a bit more afterwards? Yeah, about the bonuses. The bonuses. So the point that Janka raised was that the competing platforms could already today, with the MFN, propose bonuses to their customers, and I guess that, but they are not doing it today. The question is why, and one potential reason might be that the dominant OTAs or the larger OTAs, like Booking, could use other methods methods to punish these type of hotels. For example, rank them worse, or something like that. And if you look at the commitment that Booking has made on this, the commitment is also stating that these that the hotels should, the platform or Booking should not be able to replace the MFN, the wide MFN, by other measures. I think was your point was more on free riding, or could you re-explain it?
Yes, it was. Riding argument essentially goes along these lines. If I'll tell price, put a price of 100, let's say, on Booking, and then he puts a price for the same hotel room at 90 on its website, then customers would go to Booking, see what is the hotel they want to book for, and then they would go on the website of the hotel and book there, and therefore the hotel would not have to pay the extra fees, the commissions to Booking, and get the full profits. So that's the argument. In order to, there are two ways to eliminate this. One is the MFN, so preventing raising the price of the hotel website up to the level of the price on the platform, or the Booking could pay a bonus to customers of 10 or 11, let's say, or 10, to book for that particular hotel on their website. So at that point, the customer would not have any incentive to go on the website of the hotel, because the price, the economic price that it would be paying would be 90 or even less, and at the same time, the overall prices would be lower. So I think that this scenario looks much better than the scenario with MFNs, and at the same time, the free riding argument would be eliminated. That, I think, was...
Can I answer to this?
Yeah, sure.
But this would imply that every consumer would have always to check whether the price, how high is the price of Booking compare to the price which is offered on the offer of the hotel, which is a cost for consumers. So it would be a much worse service.
But that was
it would not be the same service. We would protect competition, but not the consumer.
Was your argument on the new entrant?
My argument is that if you force consumers to go to Booking and then go to hotel and check the price all the time, which is something you have to do according to your solution, you are worsening the service to protect competition. That's not what competition should be used for.
Paolo, you got something.
Well,
Thank you.
As for the first question, the only lawyer at the table is Tommaso, but he has some conflict in written and answering your question. Anyway, I think I agree with you. I probably, a full-fledged procedure and application of Article 113 would have been better.
But wouldn't that argument force consumers to check the different price in different sites?
I don't agree with that argument, actually. Well, first of all, because Booking is not really a web comparison, price comparison website.
The case, for example, the case in the UK was about price comparison.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
If you're saying, let's remove the price comparison web problem from the task of then we're okay. But if you think that adds value, then there's a problem.
Okay. I don't think that Booking is a price comparison website. I mean, price comparison means that you are comparing the price for exactly the same product, whereas this is not the kind of functionality that you find on Booking. And I like Giancarlo a lot because he always have a very provocative arguments, and this one is very, very good, I believe. But it's so good that everything unravels. There is a sort of waterbed effect since this is a two-sided market, and so everything that you do on one side can be undone on the other side, right?
Absolutely.
So the MFN clause should not exist in the first place because there is nothing you can do with it. You cannot impede entry, you cannot impede free ride, you cannot impede anything because anything you can do on the seller's side, you can undo on the buyer's side.
But for the price comparison, remember that sellers don't like to be put in competition with each other.
But it's not a price comparison website.
Well,
they're just
in the UK,
real estate is a price comparison function is performing. No, they're just collecting apartments that the owners want to sell and then try to match. Finding the buyer, and Booking is doing exactly the same. It's not comparing the price for the same room across different retailers. That's what price comparison websites do.
Can I reply?
No, because there are other.
Okay, go ahead.
I love it.
He's the boss. So.
Maybe you have time to reply because
let's take more questions. No, let's go to questions.
One point I want to make is these booking sites were competing in a sense with their loyalty programs. Both of them had like 10% type discounts on their loyal consumers. The other point, probably more sort of broader, I was discussing with Sven and other people yesterday as well. From the empirical perspective, this seems like a decision, like the NARAPA. We're discussing whether this is going to work or not, right? Do the competition authorities have any sort of commitment, let's say, to study the ex post effects of these sort of, let's say, maybe more, disputable decisions, so that we have a record of, okay, we made a decision, and then we ex post evaluated this. Should there be a concerted effort to do this for maybe a selected subset of decisions like this? I think that might be a good way going forward, especially on complicated cases like this.
Maybe we can take the other question, so who want to reply can take in consideration all the questions.
Zeno Zenkovic. I don't want to make the situation more complicated, but as market power was discussed, and especially the fact that platforms were charging high commissions, to me the clear answer should come from the market. Let's look just at the hotel sector. I would see quite obviously that the small hotel has no competitive, no market power towards a big platform, but if the association of hotels, French or Italian or German, do a collective bargaining with the platforms and they decide what is a reasonable commission. Commissions now are exceedingly high. 15% is a very high commission. And let's say they bring it down to 10. What does this mean? That this commission should apply to everybody, but it has to be applied, it applies to all hotels, but it applies on a non-discriminatory basis also to all platforms. So all platforms would have to charge a 10% commission. Let's make this example. Now, what are the antitrust implications of this solution? Is this a kind of agreement that somehow goes against antitrust? One could say, no, it does not, because it gives consumer welfare, because the prices are reduced, there's less commission to pay, and so you pay less for the hotel. But what is the relationship that there is with FMNs and with this general agreement that one could imagine could be between the association of hotels with the platforms? I think this is a perspective that one should take into account, because it seems quite obvious that hotels now are very unhappy, and as we saw in many of these cases, complaints were coming from the associations of the hotels, at least in Italy, against the big platforms. So I think this is something that we can expect in the future. So I think maybe this could be elaborated from your perspective, from an economic perspective.
Want to start? Or?
So you mentioned loyalty programs. They were not covered by the MFN clauses before the wide MFN, so the big hotels had loyalty programs. I'm not sure I understood what the question was.
The sites and the platforms had loyalty programs, so they were competing based on the If you book 10 hotels in Booking.com, you get one night free, or Expedia's program too. These guys were competing for customers through their loyalty programs. In a sense, as Giancarlo was saying, they were paying bonuses to the customers. And, the other point is, are you guys going to do ex-post evaluation of these decisions? Or is there a concerted policy by competition authorities to do something like this?
So your second question was about ex-post evaluation of the decision, and of course it would be good to do that if it is possible. I don't know if it perhaps one good thing, if we have different decision across different countries, is that you might be able to do that, well, that would be the positive outcome, I guess, if any, of this sort of miscoordination among different member countries. Do you want to say?
Yeah. Well, I think that the different ways in which this case was closed, and it's going to be closed in different areas, would provide a fantastic sort of natural experiment to test the impact of these clauses, and so I would love to do it really. and indeed, the French authority asked Booking to present some evidence of the impact of the narrow MFN or narrow APA, whereas the Italian authority hasn't done so. I don't know whether the Swedish also asked to produce, kind of empirical evidence of the impact of the clause after some period of time, but that would be extremely important to do. And I don't think that hotels can resort to a sort of collective bargaining to solve this problem. I'm sure that the competition authorities would go against them, and look, they are not employees; they're firms, and so they cannot probably negotiate fees collectively without infringing competition law, probably.
Giancarlo, we stopped your reply before, as you put in your reply is at least the same passion that Gianluca put in his questions. So if you want to continue.
So very briefly, I don't want to answer Zeno's question because I had a slide on that. I removed it. It's so complicated. If you add the story of what you want to have in terms of policy for fees, where it can be negotiated or going to be uniform, then we get even more into, I think it's a messy issue. If you have very clear ideas, and we don't have very clear ideas, I would actually not intervene, but that's my own attitude. So let me go back to Paolo's comments. So I agree with you, Paolo. If price comparison is not what these platforms are offering, then I agree with you. But in that case, all what we're saying is irrelevant because we're not talking about what they are talking about. If they offer, it's not about prices. We're talking about price parity agreements. This is relevant because it's not what they're offering, right? So if the price is relevant, then we want to make sure the price comparison platforms offers a good service. Think about the first case was the OFT one, right? The OFT cases on insurance was about price comparison websites. They didn't have any pictures of the different insurance policies. No? They didn't have any location of the insurance policy. They had different type of coverage and prices. So essentially, was price comparison. Okay, and if you go to price comparison sites and the price you see don't make sense because they are not the lowest one, what's the offer? What is the service there? That was just my own point.